Introduction. Friends, if you're excited about watching the delightful and heartwarming movie The Wedding Banquet 2025 in English, then go ahead and hit that like button right now. And if you're visiting our channel for the very first time, welcome to the family. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications, because we bring you all the latest updates, reviews, and inside scoops about your favorite movies. In today's video, we're going to dive deep into one of the most talked about upcoming releases, The Wedding Banquet 2025. Trust me, you'll want to stick around until the end, because we're covering everything from where to watch it, to the story, cast, music, production, and much more. So, what exactly is The Wedding Banquet 2025? Why is everyone so excited about it? What's the story behind the film? And what makes it worth watching? Well, in this video, I'll be answering all those questions and more. I'll tell you what this movie is about, what genre it belongs to, and who should definitely not miss it. Whether you love emotional drama, clever comedy, heartfelt family moments, or just beautifully shot cinema, this movie has something for everyone. And yes, we'll also be discussing exactly where and when you can watch it. Whether it will be streaming on an OTT platform like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney+, or whether it will be available on a satellite TV channel. We're going to talk about the entire journey of the film, from how it was first announced, the creative team that brought it to life, and the unique vision that sets it apart from other romantic dramas. We'll take a close look at the pre-production stage, including how the script was developed, who was involved in writing and directing, and what kind of research and preparation went into the film. You'll also get to hear about the locations chosen for the shoot, the sets that were built, and how every detail was carefully designed to reflect the film's themes and emotions. Of course, we'll also talk about the music. The soundtrack of any film plays a huge role in setting the mood, and The Wedding Banquet 2025 is no exception. I'll tell you who composed the music, who wrote the lyrics, and what kind of songs you can expect. Are there soulful ballads, upbeat wedding numbers, or traditional pieces that add cultural flavor to the film? We've got all that covered. Next, we move to the technical side: cinematography, editing, costume design, production design, and special effects, if any. These are the elements that bring the director's vision to life on screen. And I'll explain how each department contributed to creating the overall look and feel of the movie. You'll also get to hear about the challenges the team faced during shooting, whether delays, location issues, or just the pressure of getting every scene just right. After that, we'll talk about the budget of the film, how much it cost to make, whether it's a big-budget studio film or a more intimate indie production, and how those choices influence the final product. We'll also discuss the film's marketing campaign, how the trailer was received by the audience, and what kind of box office performance is expected. Will it be a sleeper hit? Will it attract international attention? We'll explore those possibilities. Now, coming to the heart of the video, the story. I'll give you a spoiler-free summary of the plot, so you can get a sense of what the movie is about without ruining any of the surprises. Whether it's a modern twist on a traditional tale, a cross-cultural romance, or a deeply personal family drama, we'll uncover the themes that make the story resonate with audiences. I'll also share a short review of the film, highlighting the strongest scenes, emotional moments, and overall impact. We can't forget the cast. We'll go over the main actors, the roles they're playing, and how their performances have been received so far, either in early reviews or sneak peeks from the trailer. Whether it's a newcomer stealing the spotlight or a veteran actor delivering a moving performance, we'll give credit where it's due. We'll also look at the chemistry between the leads, the supporting characters, and how each role fits into the narrative. And finally, we'll wrap up with some fun facts and behind-the-scenes stories. Maybe a hilarious moment on set, an unexpected improvisation that made it into the final cut, or a real-life connection between the cast members that added authenticity to the film. These little nuggets always make a film even more enjoyable to watch. So friends, grab your popcorn and settle in, because this video is your one-stop destination for everything you need to know about the Wedding Banquet 2025. If you're a movie lover, a fan of great storytelling, or just someone looking for something fresh and entertaining to watch, this film is definitely going to be worth your time. Let's get started. Alright friends, get ready, because we are diving headfirst into the gloriously chaotic, unexpectedly emotional, and hilariously heartfelt narrative of the Wedding Banquet 2025. This isn't just a story, it's an experience. It doesn't just unfold, it spins, twirls, dances around your expectations, and sometimes crashes right through them like an uninvited ant at a wedding buffet line. So, we begin with our central character. Let's call him Daniel, a polished professional living abroad. He's smart, successful, living in a sleek apartment, sipping oat milk lattes, and very much in love with his partner. Sounds perfect, right? Except, Daniel is hiding a huge part of his life from the people who raised him. His parents, who are deeply traditional, old school, and believe in the sacred trinity of culture, family, and grandchildren. And they have no idea he's gay. Cue the mounting pressure, the constant matchmaking attempts, the guilt-inducing phone calls, and the endless stream of "when are you settling down?" inquiries. Daniel, backed into a corner, comes up with what he thinks is the perfect plan. He'll marry his best friend, Sofia, a fiercely independent, quick-witted artist who also happens to need a quick marriage to solve a bureaucratic mess. Problem meets solution. They both agree it'll be a quiet legal ceremony. No muss, no fuss. Of course, that's when things spiral out of control. The first surprise? His parents are thrilled. So thrilled, they hop on a plane and announce they're throwing a grand traditional wedding banquet. Think multiple days of rituals, extended family flying in from all over the world, speeches, dances, flower arrangements, prayer ceremonies, awkward conversations, and an uncle who insists on singing every night. The simple fake marriage plan? Out the window! This is now a full-blown cultural extravaganza. And that's when the fun really begins. What follows is a story packed with layers, onion-level layers. At the surface, it's a comedy of errors, hiding the truth, pretending to be in love, fumbling through rituals they barely understand. But underneath all the laughter is something much deeper. Each character starts to feel the emotional weight of the situation. Daniel begins questioning if this lie is worth the damage it's doing to his sense of identity. Sofia, who entered this deal as a favor and a loophole, starts to wrestle with the unexpected emotional depth of the arrangement. And the parents, especially the mother, begin sensing that not everything is as picture-perfect as it seems. There's a tension building underneath the polished speeches and carefully arranged centerpieces. The film doesn't follow a typical beginning, middle, end structure. Oh no! This movie zigs where you think it'll zag. It plays with time, cutting back to childhood moments, old family videotapes, letters that were never opened, or scenes that feel like memories slipping through someone's fingers. One minute you're laughing at a bridesmaid fainting during rehearsal. The next you're watching a quiet scene where Daniel listens to his mother hum an old lullaby, her face unknowingly framed by the tension of everything he hasn't told her. The story also dances between perspectives. One scene might follow Daniel's inner monologue as he struggles to balance love and loyalty, and the next could take you inside Sofia's world, her doubts, her growing feelings, or even a voice note she never sends. We even get moments from the parents' point of view. The father has his own emotional arc, years of sacrifice, dreams he buried, and a complex relationship with his son that surfaces in beautifully understated moments. Key turning points come fast, and often at the most inconvenient moments. Just as they think they've got everything under control, someone makes a toast that reveals too much. A family friend shows up who knew Daniel back in the day. A curious cousin finds a suspicious photo. And then there's the moment. Yes, the moment. When Daniel's partner, the one he actually loves, shows up. uninvited, and everything is thrown into chaos. It's not just about whether the truth will come out. It's about how these characters will deal with it if it does. The wedding banquet itself is the emotional epicenter of the film. It's loud. It's colorful. It's over the top. There's music, there's food, there's dancing, there's passive-aggressive compliments, and in between all of it, asterisk truth leaks out star. Someone says too much. Someone overhears. Someone breaks down in the hallway. And for all its joy and chaos, the banquet becomes a mirror reflecting everything these characters are trying to hide. And just when you think you've got it figured out, the film pauses. It slows down. It gives you these intimate moments, between Daniel and his father walking silently after a long night, or Sophie alone in a room filled with wedding gifts she doesn't know what to do with. It lets the silence speak. It lets the truth hang in the air. And it asks, what does it really mean to belong? To be accepted? To love honestly? There's no lecture here, no melodramatic breakdowns or moral speeches. Just people trying their best, caught in the middle of tradition, love, fear, and a whole lot of glitter. So, if you're expecting a straightforward rom-com with predictable beats, think again. The Wedding Banquet 2025 is more like a dance between lies and love, tradition and truth, obligation and authenticity. It's beautifully messy, emotionally layered, and just the right amount of awkward. It's not just a story about a wedding. It's about everything that happens when we try to hold on to who we are while making everyone else happy. And somehow, it does all of this while still giving us scenes involving confused priests, malfunctioning microphones, and one particularly unforgettable cake disaster. All right, buckle up, because we're going even deeper into the beautiful, chaotic, and emotionally tangled world of the Wedding Banquet 2025 and its truly unforgettable cast of characters. This isn't just a movie about people going through the motions of a fake wedding. This is a movie about people feeling everything, hiding everything, saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, and slowly, painfully, hilariously, tenderly, learning how to be real with themselves and with each other. These characters don't just evolve. They crack open, fall apart, put themselves back together, and somehow, amidst all the glitter and chaos, grow into the most unexpected versions of themselves. Let's talk Daniel, the reluctant groom, the heart of the story. He starts off so tightly wound you could bounce a coin off his nerves. He's polished, composed, and emotionally armored to the point of invisibility. He's built his life around not making waves, keeping his parents proud, blending in. He doesn't lie to hurt anyone. He lies to protect everything he's built. But from the moment he agrees to the fake wedding, his carefully constructed world starts unraveling thread by thread. You see it in the way he hesitates before answering simple questions. You see it in his eyes during family dinners. You see it when he tries again and again to find the right moment to tell the truth, and never quite can. Daniel's growth is a slow burn. At first, it's not even visible. He's just reacting, covering, panicking, dodging emotional landmines. But then there's a scene where he watches his mother prepping wedding decorations, humming an old song he hasn't heard since childhood. And something in him shifts, not in a dramatic, tearful monologue kind of way. Just a small, quiet recognition of how much she loves him, and how little she knows him. From that point on, every smile he forces, every dance step he takes, feels heavier. He's carrying the weight of a truth he's no longer okay hiding. He doesn't magically find the courage. He earns it over and over, through awkward moments, tiny breakdowns, and one heartbreaking scene where he says nothing but his silence says everything. Now Sophie. Oh, Sophie. The artist. The rebel. The reluctant bride with a sharp wit and zero tolerance for anything boring or predictable. She enters the story like a breath of fresh air, or a hurricane, depending on who you ask. She agrees to the fake marriage for practical reasons, but she's also clearly trying to escape something. Maybe it's a failed relationship. Maybe it's the pressure of becoming an adult. Maybe it's just life being too much and too fast. She's the comic relief at first, throwing out sarcastic comments and rolling her eyes through every tradition. But then the layers start to peel back. Sophie has one of the most satisfying emotional arcs in the entire film. Her transformation is subtle but powerful. At one point, she's sitting with Daniel's mom, getting her makeup done for a pre-wedding ritual, and the older woman starts talking about her own wedding day. How scared she was, how little she knew, how she learned to love through the mess. And Sophie just listens. She doesn't say much, but you see something soften in her. This performance, this fake marriage, it's forcing her to confront her own fears of intimacy, of vulnerability, of being seen. And by the end of the movie, Sophie becomes someone who chooses to stay. Not out of obligation, not because she needs help, but because she finally feels grounded. Now, let's zoom in on the parents. Because wow, what a powerhouse duo. Daniel's mother is everything. She's dramatic, opinionated, emotionally intense, and planning this wedding like it's her personal Broadway debut. But underneath her controlling exterior is a woman who spent years holding her family together through silence. She isn't just enforcing traditions because she loves them. She's doing it because that's how she survived. That's how she made sense of the world. And as she starts to realize that her son isn't who she thought he was, she goes through a storm of denial, confusion, grief, and, eventually, acceptance. But not in one neat scene. It's scattered across dozens of little moments. A glance, a pause, a quiet question at the end of a long day. She doesn't explode. She absorbs. She wrestles. And when she finally sees her son, really sees him, it's one of the most emotionally raw and beautiful beats in the film. The father? He's the quiet type, but don't be fooled. His silence isn't emptiness. It's observation. He sees everything. He knows more than he lets on. While everyone else is wrapped up in the wedding frenzy, he's the one who notices Daniel flinch when someone mentions the future. He's the one who spots Sophie crying by herself. And slowly, scene by scene, he becomes the emotional compass of the story. There's a moment near the end, just a walk, no dialogue, where he puts a hand on Daniel's shoulder. And it speaks louder than any speech ever could. Even the side characters sparkle. The meddling aunt who starts as comic relief ends up becoming an unlikely source of wisdom. The wedding planner, who appears to be pure chaos, ends up revealing a tender subplot of his own. Daniel's real partner only gets a few scenes, but he makes them count. He's not just a plot device. He's a mirror for Daniel's honesty. A test of whether Daniel is willing to stop hiding and finally embrace the life he actually wants. What makes these characters so special is that they don't change in a straight line. They zigzag. They regress. They sabotage themselves. They hurt each other. They cry in bathrooms. They laugh inappropriately. They make speeches that start funny and end with everyone holding their breath. And every bit of it feels earned. Every relationship. Daniel and Sophie, Daniel and his mother, Sophie and the father, even Sophie and herself, adds another layer to the story. They all start the film pretending to be something they're not. By the end, even if they don't have it all figured out, they've at least stopped pretending. And that's what makes the character development in the Wedding Banquet 2025 so rich and engaging. It's not about neat arcs or happy endings. It's about messy growth, real transformation, the kind that happens in whispers, sideways glances, ruined toasts, and late-night confessions. It's about becoming brave enough to be known, and loving others enough to let them change. Every character leaves a mark. Every moment matters. And by the end, you don't just watch their journey. You feel like you went through it with them. All right, let's crank this all the way up, because the performances in the Wedding Banquet 2025 don't just work. They sing. They dance. They ache. They explode, simmer, and glow from the inside out. What we have here is a cast firing on all cylinders, fully locked into a script that demands more than just good acting. It demands presence, nuance, emotional generosity, and the courage to not act when silence says more. The actors don't just show up to say lines and hit marks. They disappear into their characters so completely. It feels like we're peeking into real lives unraveling in real time. Let's begin with Daniel, the reluctant groom, the secret keeper, the soul in quiet crisis. The actor playing Daniel doesn't give you the kind of performance that screams for awards. He gives you the kind that creeps under your skin and stays there. His portrayal is a masterclass in internal conflict. There's no big, "this is the moment he changes" scene. Instead, his journey is written in micro-expressions, in the way his voice catches mid-sentence, in how he hesitates before entering a room or forces a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. It's the way he flinches at affection, the way he scans the room when his parents speak, like he's constantly waiting for a moment he's dreading. And when he finally begins to let go, it's not fireworks. It's slow, cautious, trembling truth. There's a moment where he just sits, breathing heavily, eyes watery, holding an unopened letter. Nothing happens for 10 seconds. And it's one of the most emotionally loaded moments in the film. This actor is working from the inside out, and the payoff is immense. Then there's Sophie. Oh, Sophie! What a gift! This role could have easily been a stereotype. The sassy best friend, the boho artist with big opinions. But the actress brings her to life with so much soul, wit, and vulnerability that you're glued to her in every scene. She has the rare ability to be hilarious and heartbreaking at the same time. In one moment, she's quipping about floral arrangements and fake marital bliss. And in the next, she's staring into space, her voice trembling just slightly as she admits she hasn't felt grounded in years. Her face is a canvas. Every thought, every conflict, every moment of joy or regret ripples across it. There's a scene where she's in a room full of people, laughing, dancing, blending in perfectly. And then the music fades, and she's just still, her smile falling ever so slightly, like a mask sliding off. She doesn't just support Daniel's journey. She has her own, equally powerful arc. She finds her footing. She confronts her past. And she ends up not just being the emotional glue of the film, but a character who becomes more than she thought she could be. Now let's get into the parents, because this is where the performances really start punching you in the gut. The mother, let's call her Mrs. Lin, is a force. She is tradition in a power suit. She is passive-aggressive affection with perfect eyeliner. From the outside, she looks like the matriarch you've seen 100 times, bossy, demanding, laser-focused on appearances. But this actress shatters the cliché. She gives Mrs. Lin layers upon layers. Pride, fear, tenderness, denial, strength, and a quiet longing that simmers just beneath every word. Her eyes tell a different story than her mouth does. When she blesses her son and his fake bride, her hands are steady, but her voice cracks ever so slightly. She doesn't know what's wrong yet, but she knows, and she holds on to control like it's the only thing keeping her from breaking apart. Later, when the truth edges closer, she doesn't collapse into melodrama. She folds into herself, visibly processing, trying to preserve dignity while everything she thought was true begins to change. There's a final confrontation, not loud, not showy, where she simply looks at Daniel and says, "You could have told me." And in her voice, you hear not anger, but hurt. She delivers every line like it's the tip of an emotional iceberg, and it's devastating in the best way. Then there's the father, Mr. Lin, the silent rock, the observer, the kind of man who speaks little but listens always. The actor in this role gives a performance so restrained it's almost invisible at first, and then, like magic, it becomes the most powerful presence in the room. He watches, he absorbs, he sees what others miss. There's a scene where he's watching Daniel give a toast, and you'd swear he knows everything without a single word being spoken. His expressions are minimal until they're not. When he finally speaks openly to his son, it's not with fury or disappointment. It's with quiet, aching clarity. I always knew. I was just waiting for you to tell me. One line. Simple. And yet, it feels like an emotional landslide. The quiet authority, the grief wrapped in acceptance, the subtle hand on Daniel's back at the end of the banquet. This is fatherhood as quiet, emotional poetry. And then the supporting cast. Absolute scene stealers. The aunt who won't stop snooping is played to perfection. She's loud, invasive, and utterly hilarious. But the actress gives her real heart, too. You think she's just comic relief until she corners Sophie in the kitchen and says, "People lie at weddings, but they tell the truth when they dance." It hits like a philosophical uppercut. Even the caterer gets a tiny arc. A moment where he gives Daniel a pep talk about honesty that somehow makes you cry into your popcorn. The wedding planner? Utter chaos personified. But he gets one surprisingly moving monologue about his own failed engagement. And suddenly you realize this man has layers. He's not just arranging flowers. He's arranging emotional wreckage into something beautiful. And then there's Daniel's real partner. He only has maybe 10 minutes of screen time. And yet, he leaves a crater. He walks in with this air of quiet heartbreak, and in one scene, just one, he sits across from Daniel and says, "I waited for the truth. I didn't think I'd have to RSVP to it." The room goes still. You go still. Because this performance is like a scalpel, clean, precise, emotionally surgical. No yelling, just truth. What makes this ensemble work so brilliantly is their shared commitment to truthfulness. Every actor is locked into the emotional DNA of the film. They listen to each other. They respond. They create real tension, real affection, real heartbreak. They make silence feel as loud as a scream, and a look across the room feel like a 3-page monologue. You get the sense that these actors didn't just learn their roles, they lived in them. The performances don't just enhance the film. They are the film. They take a great script and turn it into something unforgettable. Watching this cast work together is like watching a symphony. Everyone playing their part, creating something complex, moving, and alive. All right, let's dive even deeper into the direction of the Wedding Banquet 2025, because this is where the film truly shows its chops. Not just telling a story, but creating an entire emotional ecosystem that feels alive, layered, and utterly immersive. The director isn't just guiding actors or setting scenes. They're conducting a delicate dance between comedy, drama, cultural commentary, and raw human emotion. Every choice, from pacing to shot composition, from tone to the smallest visual detail, feels intentional, as if the director has crafted a rich tapestry where every thread adds meaning. From the very start, the director sets the tone with a precision that almost feels like a whisper. The film opens quietly, not with any big dramatic entrance, but with Daniel's world seen through moments of mundane yet loaded detail. His fingers nervously tapping on a smartphone, the gentle hum of a voicemail message from his mother layered faintly underneath the dialogue. The director uses this layering of sound and visuals to pull the audience into Daniel's mental space, giving us an unspoken sense of tension and expectation that simmers just beneath the surface. It's like being invited into a room where everyone's holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. But you don't know what yet. One of the director's signature moves is their mastery over pacing. Unlike typical wedding films that barrel toward big emotional moments or comic payoffs, this film breathes. It knows how to slow down and let scenes linger, giving the audience space to absorb subtle cues. You'll notice long takes that don't cut away quickly. The camera will hold on a character's face just long enough to catch that flicker of doubt or relief that might be missed in a tighter edit. This patience turns even simple interactions into emotionally rich moments. The The film trusts the audience to pick up on nuance, which is a bold and refreshing choice. And when the pace does pick up, it's like being caught in a whirlwind. The director uses fast cuts, overlapping dialogue, and frantic movement to convey the chaos of the wedding preparations. Scenes become almost dizzying as relatives barge in. Decorations go up, and everyone seems to be talking over each other. The camera doesn't just capture the action, it participates in it. Handheld shots weave through crowds, creating a sense of immediacy and urgency that makes you feel like you're part of the madness, or maybe the source of it. This frenetic energy is perfectly balanced by the film's quieter moments, so the audience is constantly riding waves of calm and storm. The director's visual storytelling is another standout feature. The use of color and lighting is not just decorative but symbolic. Family home scenes are bathed in warm, rich tones, golden yellows, deep reds, muted browns, that evoke tradition, history, and the sometimes stifling weight of expectations. These scenes feel cozy but also heavy, like being wrapped in a thick quilt that's comforting but hard to breathe under. In stark contrast, Daniel's modern life with his partner is presented in cool, minimalist colors, soft blues, whites, and grays, highlighting the emotional distance and clarity of his chosen path, but also its sterility and isolation. The director's keen eye for color contrast visually echoes the film's central tension between old and new, family and individuality. Shot composition and blocking are employed with thoughtful subtlety throughout. Characters are rarely just placed in a scene. They're positioned to reflect their relationships and emotional states. Early on, Daniel and his father are often separated by objects, kitchen counters, door frames, window panes, that create a physical and emotional distance. As the story progresses and their relationship deepens, the director gradually removes these barriers, placing them closer together in the frame, sometimes even sharing tight two-shots that suggest a growing understanding. It's a beautiful visual metaphor for reconciliation that plays out wordlessly but powerfully. There's also a playful yet poignant use of space and perspective. In one memorable sequence, Daniel sits alone at a long banquet table during rehearsal dinner, while the camera pulls back to reveal a lively, crowded room behind him. The wide framing captures his isolation amidst celebration, underscoring his internal conflict with an elegant visual flourish. Moments like this show the director's flair for marrying emotion and cinematography. Stylistic flourishes appear throughout, but are always grounded in story. The slow-motion wedding photoshoot sequence, accompanied by swelling classical music, initially feels like a romantic cliché. But as Daniel's forced smile fades and the music shifts to a melancholy tone, it transforms into a haunting meditation on facade and truth. This sequence encapsulates the director's skill at blending humor and pathos, inviting laughter, then pulling the rug out to reveal something much deeper. It's like a visual metaphor for the entire film's balance between performance and reality. The director also treats cultural rituals with a careful, respectful lens, refusing to exoticize or caricature. Every traditional gesture, the serving of tea, the exchanging of vows, the careful choreography of the banquet, is captured with reverence and authenticity. Yet these rituals are framed through the eyes of characters caught between honoring tradition and seeking personal freedom, which makes them feel alive and conflicted rather than ornamental. The camera lingers on small details, a trembling hand offering tea, the crease in a forehead during a solemn blessing, that speak volumes about the characters' inner lives. Music and sound design are wielded like a scalpel in the director's hands. The score never overwhelms. Instead, it punctuates key moments with subtlety. In a standout scene, a romantic ballad begins to play as Daniel and his partner share a tender moment, only to be abruptly cut off by the clatter and chatter of a wedding rehearsal gone sideways. This sonic jolt jolts the viewer out of a reverie, mirroring Daniel's own fractured experience of love and obligation. It's a brilliant use of sound to underscore emotional conflict without a single extra line of dialogue. Even the director's handling of comedy is smart and nuanced. Rather than going for broad slapstick or predictable jokes, humor arises naturally from character interactions and cultural clashes. The timing is impeccable, quick-witted, sometimes biting, often tender. Comedic moments coexist seamlessly with moments of heartbreak, creating a tonal blend that feels refreshingly human. The director knows the value of laughter as a way to cope with pain, and that knowledge informs the entire film. Finally, the narrative vision is crystal clear. This isn't just a film about a wedding or even a gay marriage. It's a film about the intricate, often messy dance between identity, family, tradition, and self-acceptance. The director's touch ensures that every frame, every performance, every musical cue serves that larger exploration without ever feeling heavy-handed or preachy. The storytelling embraces complexity, contradiction, and ambiguity, making the film feel alive rather than formulaic. In the end, the director shapes the Wedding Banquet 2025 into a film that's both intimate and expansive, chaotic and composed, funny and deeply moving. They create a cinematic world that invites us in not just to watch a story unfold, but to feel the heartbeat of it. Its tension, its humor, its tenderness, long after the credits roll. Let's really unpack the cinematography in the Wedding Banquet 2025, because it's not just about pretty pictures or slick camera moves. It's an entire visual language that works tirelessly to deepen the story, to amplify the emotional complexity, and to immerse you so completely you almost forget you're watching a movie. The cinematographer doesn't merely capture what's happening. They reveal what's unspoken, what's lurking beneath the surface, and what the characters themselves might be too afraid or too conflicted to say out loud. It's a dance of light and shadow, perspective and framing, rhythm and stillness, all coming together to create an experience that feels intensely personal and richly layered. Starting with the angles, the film cleverly uses camera placement to subtly shape how you perceive the characters and their relationships. The director of photography isn't interested in straightforward, safe shots. Instead, you often find yourself looking at scenes from unexpected vantage points. Low angles that make characters feel imposing or overwhelmed, high angles that isolate them or make them appear vulnerable. There are moments when the camera peers through doorways or across crowded rooms, creating a sense that we're observers peeking into intimate, sometimes fragile moments. The framing often places characters at the edges of the screen or partially obscured by objects, suggesting the emotional walls they've built around themselves. It's a visual metaphor for their internal struggles, always on the periphery, never fully revealed. Lighting plays an even more crucial role, operating almost like a mood board for the film's emotional landscape. The warm, golden tones of the family home scenes aren't just aesthetically pleasing. They evoke a complex mix of warmth, tradition, and pressure. The soft shadows and rich hues suggest comfort, yes, but also a kind of emotional weight, the invisible burden of expectation that colors every interaction. When the camera lingers on a face half-lit by lamplight, or a hallway bathed in the fading glow of sunset, you feel that tug of nostalgia mixed with unease. The lighting tells you this is a place full of history, love, and also silent judgments. Contrast that with the cool, sterile lighting of Daniel's urban life with his partner. Sharp whites, clinical blues, and a kind of clean minimalism that visually screams modernity and detachment. The cinematographer uses this to great effect, creating a visual rift between Daniel's two worlds. The stark lighting here highlights a life of freedom and honesty, but also loneliness and emotional distance. The way light falls in these scenes is less forgiving. Harsh shadows underline moments of conflict or internal struggle, while the bright artificial glow strips away comfort, reminding us of the emotional cost of living a divided life. Movement of the camera is another masterstroke. In quiet, intimate scenes, the camera is often steady, lingering just enough to capture the subtle shifts in expression or body language that reveal the character's true feelings. These moments breathe. The camera lets the silence speak. But when the story demands chaos or excitement, like during the wedding preparations or the banquet itself, the cinematography shifts gears completely. The handheld camera weaves through crowds, darting in and out of conversations, reflecting the dizzying pace and overwhelming nature of these events. This shift in technique makes the audience feel the tension and confusion firsthand, turning passive viewing into active participation. It's like being pulled into the emotional whirlwind rather than just watching it from afar. One particularly striking technique is the use of reflections and glass surfaces. Mirrors, windows, and other reflective objects are used repeatedly to frame characters in fragmented or doubled images, symbolizing their fractured identities and hidden truths. There's a moment where Daniel's face is reflected across a cracked mirror, the break in the glass visually echoing his internal conflict and the fragile balance he maintains between his two worlds. These reflections aren't just pretty visuals. They carry heavy emotional resonance, inviting the audience to see the characters not as whole, polished figures, but as complex, sometimes broken people trying to hold themselves together. The framing of scenes also speaks volumes about the relationships between characters. Early on, Daniel and his father are often separated by physical barriers within the frame. Doorways, countertops, furniture, emphasizing the emotional distance and unspoken tensions. As their relationship evolves, these barriers slowly disappear, and the camera brings them physically closer in the frame, using tighter two-shots that convey reconciliation and growing understanding. It's subtle storytelling through composition, a slow visual narrative that parallels the characters' emotional journeys without needing dialogue. Color palettes are carefully curated to support the film's themes. The rich reds and golds of the wedding banquet create a festive, almost overwhelming sensory overload, but the cinematography balances this vibrancy with moments of quiet color contrast. A pale blue dress here, a muted wall there, that provide emotional punctuation. These details create rhythm within the frame, guiding the eye and the heart as the story unfolds. There are also beautifully composed wide shots that establish setting and tone with painterly grace. For example, shots of the bustling banquet hall capture the joyous chaos with fluid camera movements and rich, warm lighting that envelopes the scene like a living, breathing organism. The camera's movement here is graceful yet unrelenting, swirling around guests, capturing laughter, tension, and the sheer energy of the moment. These wide shots contrast with the film's intimate close-ups, offering a panoramic emotional spectrum that moves from the personal to the communal. Sound and music work hand in hand with the cinematography, creating a multisensory experience. The cinematographer coordinates with the sound department to time camera moves with music cues or dialogue rhythms, enhancing the emotional impact. For instance, a slow zoom into a character's face might coincide with a swelling musical note, heightening tension or intimacy. Silence, too, is visually represented. The camera's stillness during quiet moments emphasizes the weight of unspoken words. Even the small details captured through the lens tell stories. Shots lingering on hands nervously fiddling with a napkin, a steaming cup of tea, or a carefully arranged flower centerpiece don't just fill space. They ground the narrative in lived reality and cultural tradition. These visual flourishes enrich the storytelling by connecting emotional beats to tangible objects and gestures. Ultimately, the cinematography in the Wedding Banquet 2025 does what the best visual storytelling does. It communicates what words cannot, drawing you deep into the characters' emotional worlds through light, shadow, angle, and movement. It's a rich visual feast that balances beauty and tension, stillness and chaos, intimacy and spectacle. Watching it is like stepping into a beautifully crafted painting where every brushstroke reveals something new about the people and the story, inviting you to feel their struggles, joys, and complexities as if they were your own. Let's dive even deeper into the editing and pacing of the Wedding Banquet 2025, because these elements are the unsung heroes that shape your entire viewing experience. Think of editing as the invisible thread weaving together every scene, every emotion, every subtle nuance, creating a rhythm that guides you through the story's complexities. It's more than just cutting footage. It's about crafting a flow that mirrors the characters' emotional journeys, balancing moments of tension, humor, reflection, and chaos with such finesse that you hardly notice the transitions, yet feel their impact on a visceral level. Right from the opening scenes, the editing sets the tone by establishing a tempo that's measured but inviting. Instead of rushing into the plot, the film takes its time to introduce the characters and their world, letting the audience settle in comfortably. The cuts here are deliberate, lingering on expressions, subtle gestures, and the quiet interactions that reveal so much without words. This patient pacing draws you in gently, creating a foundation of emotional intimacy. It's like dipping your toes into the water before diving in. The editor clearly knows that rushing these early moments would shortchange the audience's connection to the characters. As the story progresses and the stakes rise, the editing subtly shifts gears. The rhythm quickens to match the growing tension between Daniel's two worlds, the traditional expectations of his family clashing with his chosen life with his partner. Scenes involving family dinners or confrontations tend to be paced with longer takes interspersed with quick reaction shots, creating a push-and-pull effect that mirrors the emotional tug-of-war on screen. The editor uses this dynamic pacing to heighten discomfort or anticipation, so you can almost feel the characters' anxieties vibrating through the cuts. You're not just observing conflict, you're experiencing its pulse. Now, contrast that with the sequences showcasing Daniel's life in the city, where the editing is cleaner and brisker, reflecting a different energy and mindset. These moments move with efficiency, cutting away before any scene overstays its welcome, capturing the freedom and fluidity of his modern lifestyle. This juxtaposition in pacing between the two worlds cleverly reinforces the film's central theme of duality, without ever having to explicitly say so. It's a subtle storytelling device, but one that works powerfully beneath the surface. When the film reaches high-energy scenes, like the wedding preparations or the banquet itself, the editing truly shines as it orchestrates a symphony of chaos and celebration. Shots zip between guests bustling about, candid reactions, frantic coordination, and quiet personal moments tucked amid the festivity. The editing here is fast but never frantic, perfectly balancing the overwhelming sensory overload of a big event with the tender, intimate beats that keep the story grounded. It's a whirlwind you can follow without losing track, a dance of images and emotions that builds excitement and tension in equal measure. What's particularly clever is how the editor manipulates pacing to serve the film's humor. Comedy is all about timing, and the cuts in the Wedding Banquet 2025 demonstrate a keen sense of when to hold on a punchline or reaction and when to cut away for maximum effect. There are moments of deadpan silence where the camera lingers just long enough to make you chuckle uncomfortably, and then snaps to a character's embarrassed or surprised face, turning awkwardness into comedy gold. This careful timing ensures the humor feels organic, part of the character's lived reality rather than forced jokes, making the laughter feel earned and genuine. On the emotional front, the editor isn't afraid to slow things down and let certain moments breathe. There are pauses between lines of dialogue, prolonged close-ups, and quiet interludes that invite reflection. These slower beats give the story room to sink in, allowing you to absorb the significance of what's happening beneath the surface. Whether it's a moment of vulnerability shared between characters or a lingering shot of someone lost in thought, the pacing respects the emotional gravity, trusting the audience to connect without needing constant stimulation or exposition. Transitions between scenes are another area where the editing excels. Instead of abrupt cuts or jarring jumps, The film often employs creative bridges that maintain the narrative flow and reinforce thematic links. For instance, a scene might end on a close-up of a door closing, and the next begins with a door opening in a completely different setting, smoothly connecting disparate parts of the story. Or the laughter of a crowded room might fade into the quiet hum of an intimate conversation, blending sound and image to keep you effortlessly engaged. These transitions feel seamless, but are carefully crafted to support storytelling. The editor's attention to pacing also enhances the film's emotional arc. By varying the tempo, sometimes lingering, sometimes speeding up, the film mimics the natural rhythm of life and relationships. It captures how moments of joy, tension, and sorrow ebb and flow, never feeling artificial or mechanical. This organic pacing makes the narrative's emotional beats hit harder because they feel real and relatable, not scripted or manipulated. Small details in the editing are also worth noting. Overlapping dialogue is handled with skill, allowing conversations to feel authentic and spontaneous. Montage sequences, such as scenes showing preparations or flashbacks, are cut with a rhythm that keeps the story moving while adding texture and context. Even the film's quieter moments, like a character's contemplative gaze or a simple gesture, are framed and timed with an editor's eye for storytelling, ensuring every second on screen matters. Importantly, the editing respects the film's tonal shifts, blending humor and drama in a way that feels smooth and natural. When the story shifts from light-hearted banter to serious confrontation, the cuts adjust accordingly, sometimes speeding up to reflect rising tension, other times slowing down to let weighty moments land. This flexibility in pacing keeps the audience emotionally invested and prevents the film from feeling disjointed or uneven. In summary, the editing and pacing in The Wedding Banquet 2025 are meticulously crafted to serve the story's emotional and narrative needs. They guide the viewer through a complex tale of identity, culture, and family with grace and precision. The rhythm they establish enhances the film's ability to surprise, engage, and move you, turning what could be a straightforward narrative into a rich, immersive journey. The editor's choices create a flow that's never predictable, always alive, and perfectly attuned to the character's unfolding drama. It's the invisible thread that holds everything together and makes the film not just seen, but deeply felt. The soundtrack and score of The Wedding Banquet 2025 are nothing short of a musical journey that weaves its way deep into the fabric of the film, enhancing every scene with layers of emotion and cultural texture. From the very first moment the music begins, it establishes a sonic world that feels alive and intimately connected to the characters and their stories. The composer doesn't just create background noise. Instead, they craft a rich soundscape that dances with the narrative, adding subtle emotional hues that sometimes speak louder than dialogue ever could. What's truly impressive is how the music captures the essence of the film's central theme, the blending and clashing of tradition and modernity. Throughout the score, you'll hear a fascinating interplay between traditional instruments, like delicate flutes, bamboo zither, or plucked strings, alongside modern synths, piano riffs, or gentle electronic beats. This fusion of sounds is a brilliant metaphor for the protagonist's own life, caught between the expectations of his family and his personal choices. The score doesn't just accompany the story. It actively embodies it, becoming a voice for the character's internal conflicts and desires. Recurring musical motifs serve as emotional signposts throughout the film. These short but memorable musical phrases are tied to key characters or situations, appearing and evolving as the story progresses. For instance, a gentle, wistful melody might introduce Daniel's connection to his family, sounding sweet and nostalgic in early scenes, but growing more complex and tense as the pressures mount. When that same motif reappears later, perhaps during moments of confrontation or decision, it carries the weight of all the emotions built up before, giving the audience a deeper understanding of what's at stake without needing extra explanation. It's a clever storytelling device that operates under the radar, enhancing the narrative's emotional depth. Another standout feature is how silence is masterfully employed in conjunction with the music. Rather than filling every moment with sound, the film strategically allows quiet spaces to breathe. These silences are not empty. They're charged with meaning. When the music drops away during a tense family discussion or a private moment of doubt, the natural sounds, soft breathing, the rustle of fabric, distant city noise, come into focus, creating a heightened sense of realism and intimacy. This restraint makes the moments when the music returns all the more powerful, as if the score is responding to the characters' emotions rather than leading them. The balance between sound and silence feels intuitive, making the audience more attuned to the subtle undercurrents of feeling running through the story. When the film moves into its livelier, more festive scenes, particularly during the titular wedding banquet, the soundtrack bursts into life. Here, the music is celebratory, vibrant, and layered with rich percussion, lively string sections, and sometimes even traditional folk melodies that evoke the spirit of communal joy and cultural heritage. But what's remarkable is how the music never overwhelms the scene. Instead, it perfectly complements the visual chaos and emotional complexity of a big family event, where joy and tension intermingle. The editing and the score work hand in hand, the music accentuating bursts of laughter, hurried preparations, and heartfelt toasts without stealing the spotlight. It's a vivid musical celebration that feels genuine and immersive. On the quieter, more introspective side, the soundtrack reveals its tender soul. Soft piano themes, gentle string arrangements, and airy woodwind passages create an emotional warmth that envelopes intimate moments between characters. These compositions are subtle but deeply affecting, providing a sonic backdrop for vulnerability, regret, hope, and connection. The music here acts like an emotional echo, resonating with the characters' inner worlds and inviting the audience to share in their feelings. It never dictates how you should feel, but rather opens a door to empathy and understanding. Humor, a vital ingredient in the wedding banquet, is also enhanced by the music in surprisingly clever ways. The score frequently employs playful, whimsical cues that underline the comedic timing without being heavy-handed or cliched. Whether it's a light-hearted misunderstanding, an awkward family interaction, or a perfectly timed reaction shot, the music nudges the audience to smile or laugh, often by holding a note just a moment longer or dropping into a quirky rhythm that mirrors the characters' predicaments. This musical subtlety helps maintain the film's balance, ensuring that humor feels natural and integrated rather than forced. Another dimension of the soundtrack's brilliance lies in its adaptability. The film moves fluidly between different emotional tones and settings: urban landscapes, intimate home interiors, bustling social gatherings, and the music shifts accordingly. The score molds itself to the mood, never sounding out of place. Whether it's the quiet tension of a secret revealed or the hopeful promise of a new beginning, the music feels perfectly attuned to the moment, guiding the audience's emotional journey without any jarring transitions. Sound design complements the score beautifully. Ambient sounds, such as the murmur of guests, the clinking of utensils, footsteps on hardwood floors, or the distant hum of city life, are carefully woven into the audio tapestry. These everyday noises don't compete with the music. Instead, they create a grounded, immersive environment that makes each scene feel lived in and authentic. The interplay between music and sound effects enhances the film's realism, making the story's world rich and textured. Moreover, the soundtrack responds dynamically to the characters' evolving relationships and personal growth. As tensions flare or bonds deepen, the music subtly shifts tone, sometimes growing more intense, sometimes more gentle, reflecting the nuances of human emotion. This musical storytelling adds layers of meaning that dialogue alone could never fully capture. The score becomes a bridge between what characters say and what they truly feel, enriching the narrative in ways that engage the audience on both conscious and subconscious levels. In scenes where the film's emotional stakes are highest, moments of confrontation, revelation, or quiet acceptance, the music swells with a restrained power. It never resorts to melodrama, but instead chooses to support the raw vulnerability on screen, allowing feelings to rise organically. This restraint makes the emotional moments feel earned and authentic, creating a profound connection between the viewer and the story. In essence, the soundtrack and score of the Wedding Banquet 2025 are an essential part of what makes the film so captivating. They elevate the storytelling by adding emotional resonance, cultural richness, and tonal balance. The music doesn't just accompany the narrative, it lives and breathes with it, reflecting the characters' inner worlds and the story's cultural tapestry with sensitivity and artistry. It's a subtle but powerful force that transforms the film from a simple tale into an immersive experience, inviting audiences to feel deeply and connect on multiple levels through the universal language of music. The Wedding Banquet 2025 is a film that bubbles with ideas and themes, many of which reach far beneath the surface and invite you to reflect on life, love, culture, and identity in ways that feel both personal and universal. The story isn't content with just telling what happens. It's about what it all means, the messy contradictions we live with, and the ways we try to make sense of who we are in a world full of expectations and traditions. At its heart, the movie is a vivid exploration of the tension between tradition and modernity, and it does so without getting bogged down or preachy. Daniel's life is a perfect example of that struggle. He's caught between the expectations of his immigrant family, who hold tightly to cultural rituals and values, and the modern world he inhabits, where his identity and choices don't always fit neatly into those traditions. This clash isn't portrayed as a simple battle of old versus new, but rather as a delicate dance, where sometimes the steps are awkward, sometimes they're graceful, and sometimes they even surprise you. The film captures this beautifully by showing how culture isn't static. It's alive, shifting, and full of contradictions. Tradition can be a source of comfort and connection, but it can also feel like a chain, restricting the freedom to be yourself. Closely tied to this is the theme of secrecy and identity, which the film handles with remarkable nuance. Daniel's arrangement to marry Wei Wei as a way to placate his parents isn't just a comedic setup. It's a metaphor for the ways people hide parts of themselves to fit into the boxes others expect. The movie asks, without ever sounding heavy-handed, what it costs to live a double life. How much of yourself do you have to put away just to keep peace or avoid judgment? And what happens when the masks start slipping? This theme resonates because it's so relatable. Many people, not just in Daniel's situation, have experienced the pressure to conceal parts of their true selves, whether that's about sexuality, ambitions, or personal beliefs. Family dynamics are a rich source of both humor and heartache in the film. The parents, siblings, and extended family aren't flat caricatures, but fully realized people with their own hopes, fears, and imperfections. The film explores the push and pull of familial love in a way that feels deeply authentic. The parents' insistence on the wedding isn't just about control. It comes from a place of love, cultural pride, and concern for what they believe is best. This complexity makes the family interactions feel lived in and relatable, showing that love and conflict often go hand in hand. The generational gap plays out with both tension and tenderness, highlighting how cultural expectations can evolve over time, sometimes slowly and awkwardly, but always with a possibility of growth. Sacrifice and compromise emerge as another important theme, and the film doesn't shy away from showing how complicated these can be. Characters make choices to protect others or preserve harmony, but the story also highlights the emotional cost of those choices. It's not all noble martyrdom. There's frustration, regret, and sometimes resentment wrapped up in the compromises people make. This theme adds a bittersweet layer to the story, prompting the audience to think about when sacrifice becomes too much and what it means to live authentically in spite of pressures. Love is at the core of the film in all its messy, imperfect forms. Romantic love, family love, self-love. Each is explored with warmth and honesty. The film celebrates love's power to heal and connect, but also doesn't shy away from showing how difficult love can be when it requires honesty and vulnerability. The journey toward acceptance, both from others and oneself, is portrayed as slow and ongoing, filled with setbacks and small victories that feel incredibly real. It's a reminder that love is not always easy, but it's often worth the struggle. Social commentary is woven through the film in a way that feels organic rather than didactic. By placing a same-sex relationship at the center of a traditional immigrant family story, the film opens a conversation about evolving cultural norms, the courage to break with convention, and the sometimes painful process of gaining acceptance. The film doesn't pretend this journey is smooth. There are moments of resistance, misunderstanding, and discomfort, but it also shows moments of breakthrough and growth, offering a hopeful vision of change. What makes the film's handling of these themes especially engaging is its use of humor. The story mines comedy from the cultural and generational clashes, creating moments that are both funny and insightful. The humor lightens the mood without trivializing the stakes, making the themes more accessible and relatable. It's a clever balancing act that invites audiences to laugh at the absurdities of life, while also appreciating the deeper emotional truths underneath. Identity itself is treated as fluid and multifaceted throughout the film. Characters don't fit neatly into boxes. They embody contradictions, growth, and complexity. This portrayal encourages viewers to embrace the messiness of human identity, rather than seek simple labels or easy answers. It's a refreshing perspective that feels very modern and human. Beyond the personal and familial, the film subtly critiques societal pressures and cultural expectations at large. It explores how communities enforce norms and how individuals navigate the space between belonging and individuality. The story suggests that breaking from tradition can be isolating, but also liberating, and that cultural evolution is often messy, contested, and ongoing. In the end, the themes and messages of the Wedding Banquet 2025 linger, because they are lived and breathed through the characters and their situations, not just told through dialogue or exposition. The film invites viewers into a world where identity, love, and tradition intersect in complicated but beautiful ways. It challenges you to think, to feel, and to question, all while keeping you entertained with a story full of heart, humor, and humanity. This blend of depth and accessibility makes the film's themes resonate long after the credits roll, offering plenty of food for thought and conversation. When it comes to the Wedding Banquet 2025, the use of visual effects and CGI is surprisingly subtle, but thoughtfully integrated into the film's world. This isn't one of those movies that bombard you with flashy, over-the-top digital wizardry. Instead, the effects are like little whispers in the background, gently enhancing the story without pulling you out of the experience. The film knows its tone and setting, rooted in relatable family drama and cultural comedy, so the visual effects take a back seat, carefully working to support rather than overshadow the narrative. You won't find CGI explosions or fantasy sequences here. The digital effects are more about enhancing the realism or smoothing over technical edges. For example, background elements, like bustling cityscapes or specific cultural decorations, are sometimes subtly augmented to create a richer atmosphere. These digital touches blend so seamlessly that you might not even consciously notice them, which is exactly the point. When visual effects are this well done, they feel invisible, creating an immersive environment that feels lived in and authentic. What's impressive is the way the film balances digital enhancements with practical effects. There are many scenes where the tactile, real-world details shine through. The sets, costumes, and props all feel tangible and textured. This grounded approach adds a layer of sincerity and warmth that digital effects alone can't replicate. When practical effects are used, whether it's a simple family meal setup or a busy street scene, they anchor the film in reality, making the story feel more immediate and relatable. In moments where CGI is called upon, perhaps to tidy up visual continuity, adjust lighting effects, or enhance a subtle background element, the execution is clean and unobtrusive. The filmmakers seem to have resisted the temptation to go overboard, which is refreshing. This restraint serves the film's intimate tone perfectly, ensuring the audience stays connected to the characters and their emotional journeys without distraction. The visual effects team also uses CGI to gently support the comedic timing and emotional beats. For example, slight enhancements to expressions or background details can amplify a joke or underscore a tender moment without resorting to overt visual gags. This kind of understated digital magic helps maintain the film's rhythm and pacing while enriching the viewing experience. One particularly clever use of visual effects is in scenes where cultural or symbolic elements need a touch of magic. Maybe a festival scene with lanterns glowing softly, or a moment where lighting subtly shifts to highlight a character's emotional state. These digital flourishes are artfully done, adding a layer of visual poetry that deepens the narrative impact without ever feeling forced or out of place. Another interesting point is how the film uses visual effects to manage transitions between scenes or timelines. Instead of jarring cuts, there are sometimes smooth, almost invisible effects that help guide the viewer through shifts in time or mood. These transitions work like little cinematic bridges, maintaining flow and engagement without calling attention to themselves. It's a quiet but effective technique that enhances the overall storytelling. Unlike big-budget action flicks or sci-fi extravaganzas, the visual effects here serve a much different purpose. They're the subtle brushstrokes that complete the painting rather than the spotlight. This approach fits the film's heart and soul perfectly, creating a cohesive, believable world where the characters and their stories take center stage. What's refreshing is that the CGI never feels like a shortcut or a crutch. Instead, it's a tool used thoughtfully, showing respect for the practical craftsmanship on set and the emotional authenticity of the performances. The digital work quietly amplifies what's already there, making sure nothing feels out of place or artificial. Overall, the visual effects and CGI in the Wedding Banquet 2025 act like an invisible hand guiding the viewer gently through the story, enhancing the atmosphere, smoothing transitions, and occasionally adding a touch of visual magic, all without ever stealing the spotlight. It's a masterclass in subtlety, proving that sometimes the best effects are the ones you barely notice, but can't imagine the film without. Step into the Wedding Banquet 2025, and you're immediately wrapped in a world that feels both intimate and richly detailed, thanks to some seriously thoughtful set design and location choices. The film doesn't just plop characters into random spaces. It carefully crafts every room, every street, and every prop to tell its own quiet story, building a world that feels lived in, vibrant, and totally believable. The homes, in particular, are absolute stars in their own right. Daniel's apartment, for example, perfectly captures that modern urban vibe. A place that feels sleek and functional, but also a little impersonal, reflecting his life as a successful man navigating a fast-paced city life while keeping some parts of himself under wraps. Contrast that with his parents' home, which bursts with cultural touches, from traditional artwork and patterned fabrics to shelves crowded with family photos and keepsakes. This warm, layered environment is like a living scrapbook of heritage and memory, visually underscoring the weight of tradition and expectation in Daniel's world. The way these spaces are designed tells you volumes without a single line of dialogue. Family history, values, and the push-pull between old and new all come through loud and clear. Locations outside the home are equally well chosen and handled with care. The bustling streets, local restaurants, and community centers feel authentic, not staged. There's a genuine energy in these places that grounds the story in a recognizable reality. You get a real sense of the cultural melting pot that the characters inhabit, and the settings pulse with that blend of tradition and contemporary life. It's like the city itself becomes a character, full of contradictions, vibrant, and sometimes overwhelming. The cinematography works hand in hand with the production design here, using locations that add depth and context, helping us understand the characters better by showing us where and how they live. The wedding banquet itself is a visual feast. The set design here shines with bursts of color, ornate decorations, and meticulous details that capture the grandeur and chaos of a traditional wedding. The flowers, lanterns, embroidered fabrics, and food displays don't just decorate the scene. They immerse you in the cultural richness and the emotional weight of the event. You can almost smell the incense and hear the chatter of guests just by looking at these vibrant visuals. The set manages to convey both celebration and tension. This is a joyous occasion, but also one loaded with expectations and hidden truths. Props throughout the film do some impressive storytelling work too. Small items, a worn photo album, a particular piece of jewelry, a traditional fan, become symbols of connection, memory, and identity. They add texture and nuance, reminding us that culture and family aren't just abstract ideas, but lived experiences carried through tangible objects. The attention to these little details elevates the whole production, making the world feel tangible and real. The production design also cleverly uses space to highlight the characters' emotional states. Crowded rooms and close quarters during the wedding scenes can evoke the pressure cooker atmosphere Daniel feels, while quieter, more open spaces in other scenes offer moments of relief and reflection. This spatial storytelling is subtle but powerful, adding layers of meaning to the visual experience. Even the lighting choices complement the set design perfectly. Warm, soft glows in family scenes suggest comfort and nostalgia, while cooler, sharper lighting in more tense or private moments help underscore conflict or secrecy. Together with the sets, these lighting cues help guide your emotions and focus without ever being overt. What's really delightful is how the sets and locations invite you to linger and explore visually. There's so much richness in the details, textures, colors, cultural symbols, that watching becomes an immersive experience. It's not just about where the story happens, but how those places speak to the story. You feel the weight of history in a particular object, the tension in a cramped hallway, or the joy in a brightly decorated banquet hall. This kind of thoughtful production design makes the world come alive in a way that feels organic and rewarding. Ultimately, the Wedding Banquet 2025 uses its settings and locations like a storyteller uses tone or dialogue. They provide context, emotional cues, and cultural texture that deepen the story and pull you into the characters' lives. Every space feels purposeful, every prop carefully chosen, creating a world that's not just a backdrop, but an essential part of the narrative fabric. Alive, compelling, and totally believable. The dialogue in the Wedding Banquet 2025 is like a secret sauce that keeps the entire film flavorful and engaging, blending humor, heart, and cultural nuance in a way that feels effortlessly natural. From the very first conversation, you get the sense that these characters aren't just reciting lines. They're living and breathing people with real voices, quirks, and rhythms. The script doesn't lean on cliches or heavy exposition. Instead, it crafts conversations that feel spontaneous and packed with subtext, where what's left unsaid is just as important as the words themselves. One of the most entertaining aspects of the dialogue is how sharply it balances wit and warmth. There are plenty of moments where the characters exchange clever, quick-fire lines that make you smile or chuckle, but it never feels like the film is trying too hard to be funny. The humor arises naturally from the characters' personalities and situations. Daniel's awkward attempts to juggle his secret, Weiwei's quick comebacks, or the parents' sometimes unintentional, old-school bluntness all create lively, memorable exchanges. The comedy is smart and understated, often highlighting cultural clashes or generational misunderstandings without mocking anyone. Instead, it invites you to laugh with the characters, sharing in the absurdity and tenderness of their lives. Emotional weight runs just as strong through the script. When the story shifts gears and delves into more serious territory, identity struggles, family expectations, or moments of vulnerability, the dialogue carries a genuine depth. Lines that might sound simple on paper become powerful because of how the actors deliver them and the context in which they're spoken. There's a beautiful balance between restraint and expressiveness. Sometimes characters say exactly what they mean in a way that hits you right in the heart, and other times they say less but communicate so much more through tone and timing. These quieter moments feel honest and raw, inviting the audience to lean in and connect emotionally. The script also shines in how it handles the intersection of cultures. Language barriers, cultural idioms, and differing worldviews aren't just surface details. They're woven into the dialogue in ways that feel authentic and respectful. This adds richness and texture, as characters sometimes stumble over words or interpret things differently, leading to moments of humor and insight. The film doesn't flatten or stereotype cultural differences. Instead, it uses them to explore the characters' identities and relationships in a way that feels vibrant and real. Standout lines are sprinkled throughout the film, lines that capture the spirit or conflict of the story in just a few words. Some become little catchphrases within the film's world, while others linger in your mind afterward because they encapsulate a complex emotion or truth so succinctly. These moments of impactful writing often come in the form of witty remarks, heartfelt confessions, or sharp observations about life and love. They give the script a poetic touch, reminding you that dialogue can be both entertaining and meaningful without being heavy-handed. One of the clever tricks of the writing is how it uses dialogue to build tension and release it. Conversations often start off light and humorous, but gradually reveal underlying anxieties or secrets, keeping you on your toes. The pacing of exchanges is spot on, sometimes fast and snappy to match the energy of a scene, other times slow and deliberate to let emotional beats land. This rhythm keeps the audience engaged and emotionally invested throughout. The script also doesn't shy away from playful banter and moments of awkwardness, which feel incredibly relatable. Whether it's Daniel fumbling through an explanation or family members misunderstanding each other, these moments add a layer of humanity and humor that makes the characters feel all the more real. The writing captures the way people actually talk, sometimes polite, sometimes blunt, sometimes hesitant, sometimes sharp, and this authenticity adds to the film's charm. Overall, the dialogue and script of the Wedding Banquet 2025 act like a finely tuned instrument, playing a tune that's sometimes joyful, sometimes melancholic, but always compelling. The words dance off the page with wit, emotion, and cultural insight, inviting the audience to listen closely, laugh, reflect, and maybe even relate a little too much. It's this clever and heartfelt writing that helps turn the film from just a story into an experience you want to dive into and savor. The Wedding Banquet 2025 plays with genre conventions in a way that feels both familiar and refreshingly original, refusing to be boxed in by expectations while still delivering all the emotional and narrative beats you want. At first glance, it might seem like a typical romantic comedy or family drama, but as you dive deeper, you realize it's much more layered, weaving together humor, cultural commentary, and heartfelt emotion in a way that keeps you guessing and engaged. Instead of following the usual romantic comedy roadmap, boy meets girl, misunderstandings abound, love triumphs, the film twists the formula by placing its story firmly within the complexities of cultural identity, family obligations, and personal authenticity. It subverts the cliché wedding movie trope by turning the wedding banquet itself into a high-stakes backdrop rather than the sole focus. Here, the wedding isn't just a celebration. It's a battleground for secrets, expectations, and the clash between tradition and modern life. That sets the stage for plenty of unexpected moments, where humor and drama bounce off each other like a lively conversation rather than predictable beats. The film manages a clever balance between light-hearted comedy and more serious, dramatic moments without feeling like it's shifting gears awkwardly. The humor is often situational and character-driven. Awkward family interactions, cultural misunderstandings, or the protagonist's attempts to juggle conflicting identities. This comedic layer keeps the tone buoyant and relatable, inviting you to laugh at the absurdities of life rather than just the characters. It's a humor that feels earned, never forced or slapstick, which helps maintain the film's emotional core. At the same time, the drama is grounded and thoughtful. The story explores deep issues like identity, acceptance, and the weight of cultural expectations with sincerity and nuance. These heavier themes don't overshadow the comedy, but instead enrich it, creating moments where laughter and tears exist side by side. The film resists the temptation to resolve conflicts neatly or quickly. Instead, it lets tension simmer and characters wrestle with real dilemmas, making the story feel honest and impactful. What's refreshing is how the film avoids the usual genre pitfalls. It doesn't rely on tired stereotypes or easy cliches about immigrant families or LGBTQ+ relationships. Instead, it presents characters and situations with complexity and respect, allowing the audience to see the full humanity in each person. This approach feels new and necessary, giving the film a voice that stands out within its genre. There's also a subtle suspense to the story, not the kind that comes from action or thriller elements, but the kind born from secrets and the fear of being discovered. This tension adds a layer of intrigue and urgency that propels the narrative forward. You're constantly wondering how and when the truth will surface, and the film uses this anticipation to keep you hooked without resorting to cheap shocks or melodrama. The pacing of these genre elements is skillfully handled. Comedy and drama flow naturally into each other, creating a rhythm that feels organic rather than segmented. The film's emotional highs and lows are well-timed, giving you moments to breathe, laugh, and reflect in turn. This balance helps avoid the pitfalls of feeling either too heavy or too frivolous. In terms of genre blending, The Wedding Banquet 2025 almost feels like a dramedy with a cultural twist, but it never loses sight of the story's emotional truth. The film also hints at social commentary, using its genre framework to explore bigger questions about identity, belonging, and the meaning of family without ever getting preachy or didactic. This gives the film an extra layer of depth that invites conversation long after the credits roll. Overall, the genre execution here is a delightful dance between expectation and surprise. The film knows the rules well enough to play with them cleverly, tossing in fresh ideas and emotional honesty that keep the audience engaged and invested. It's a movie that delivers laughs, heart, and thoughtfulness all in one package, showing how a well-crafted blend of genres can make a familiar story feel vibrant and new. The Wedding Banquet 2025 doesn't just tell a story about love and family. It's like a cultural lens, offering sharp, insightful commentary on some of today's most relevant social issues without ever feeling like a lecture. Instead of banging you over the head with political messages, it weaves these themes into the very fabric of the characters' lives and choices, making the commentary feel organic and deeply human. This natural integration makes the film feel alive and urgent, as if you're getting a front-row seat to conversations and struggles happening right now in real communities. One of the most compelling layers of social commentary in the film revolves around the clash between tradition and modern identity, especially within immigrant families. It explores how deeply ingrained cultural expectations can shape, restrict, or complicate individual desires and freedoms. The tension between Daniel's desire to live authentically and the pressure to conform to family and societal norms reflects a universal struggle. But it's handled with a specificity and respect that makes the film resonate on multiple levels. This is a story about the push and pull between honoring one's heritage and carving out a personal path. And the film presents this without easy answers or judgment, which feels refreshingly honest. The way the film addresses LGBTQ+ themes is particularly noteworthy. It doesn't sensationalize or sideline these experiences, but centers them as part of the character's reality, layered and complex. The challenges Daniel faces aren't just about his sexuality, but how it intersects with culture, family, and expectations. The film highlights the nuanced ways these identities overlap, sometimes clash, and often require delicate negotiation. By doing this, it opens up a conversation about acceptance and visibility in communities where such topics might still be taboo or sensitive, all without feeling heavy-handed. The humor and warmth sprinkled throughout help keep this exploration accessible and relatable. The film also touches on generational divides, showing how older and younger family members view identity, duty, and happiness differently. The parents, while sometimes stubborn or traditional, are also portrayed with empathy, revealing their hopes, fears, and love beneath the surface. This adds complexity to the cultural dialogue, reminding the audience that these tensions are rarely black and white. Instead, the film suggests that understanding and connection often come from navigating these gray areas, a message that feels particularly important in today's globalized world. Beyond family and identity, the film comments on the broader experience of immigration and assimilation. The settings and interactions hint at the balancing act many immigrants perform, maintaining cultural roots while adapting to a new society. This dynamic adds another dimension to the narrative, showing how culture isn't static but constantly evolving. The story suggests that identity can be fluid and multifaceted, shaped by both heritage and personal choice. This theme is conveyed through everyday moments and small gestures as much as through dialogue, making it feel lived in rather than theoretical. What's especially effective is how the film uses humor and relatable scenarios to unpack these heavier themes. The comedy doesn't trivialize the issues, but creates space for reflection without tension, making difficult conversations feel approachable. Moments of awkward family dinners, secret keeping, or cultural misunderstandings become vehicles for exploring bigger ideas about acceptance, authenticity, and love. The result is a film that feels both deeply personal and socially conscious, inviting you to laugh, think, and maybe even rethink your own assumptions. The film also steers clear of easy stereotypes or simplistic portrayals, instead opting for a nuanced approach that respects the complexity of cultural identities and social pressures. This is a movie that acknowledges contradictions and imperfections, showing characters who are sometimes flawed, sometimes brave, and always human. The commentary on social issues feels rooted in empathy and curiosity, encouraging dialogue rather than division. In addition, the Wedding Banquet 2025 subtly highlights how societal expectations around marriage, gender roles, and family honor still shape many lives around the world, not just within the specific cultural context of the film. It questions the idea of a one-size-fits-all model for happiness and success, suggesting instead that these ideas are evolving and must be challenged to allow space for diverse experiences. In short, the film turns the spotlight on contemporary cultural and social questions with a deft touch. Its commentary is not a separate layer, but the beating heart of the story, enriching the narrative and making it resonate far beyond the screen. Through smart writing, warm performances, and relatable situations, it offers a mirror to society. Sometimes funny, sometimes poignant, always thoughtful, and invites the audience to engage with the complexities of identity, love, and family in a changing world. The Wedding Banquet 2025 knows exactly how to pull at your heartstrings while keeping you thoroughly entertained, creating a roller coaster of emotions that doesn't let up from start to finish. It's a film that invites you to laugh out loud one moment and then quietly reflect the next, blending these emotional beats so seamlessly that you hardly notice the shifts. They just feel like a natural part of the experience. This ability to hit a wide emotional range is one of the film's biggest strengths, making it feel less like watching a story unfold and more like living through it alongside the characters. Right from the get-go, the film hooks you in with relatable, funny moments that keep things light and engaging. The awkward family dinners, the cultural misunderstandings, Daniel's often clumsy attempts to juggle his double life. These scenes spark genuine laughter because they're rooted in real human experience. The humor isn't just there for comic relief. It's a way to connect the audience with the characters on a deeply human level, making their struggles and joys feel accessible and authentic. You find yourself rooting for these characters not just because of their charm, but because they feel like people you might actually know. But then the film doesn't shy away from turning the emotional volume up. When the story delves into more serious territory, questions of identity, acceptance, and the pain of keeping secrets, it hits hard. These moments invite you to pause and really feel what the characters are going through. And it's hard not to be moved. The emotional tension builds naturally, and the way it's handled avoids melodrama, instead opting for quiet honesty that sticks with you. Scenes where characters confront their fears or reveal their true selves create a powerful emotional resonance that lingers well beyond the screen. The film also excels at surprising the audience with unexpected emotional twists. Just when you think you know where things are headed, it throws in a moment of vulnerability or insight that deepens the story and challenges your assumptions. These surprises keep the emotional engagement fresh and dynamic, preventing the narrative from becoming predictable or flat. It's like the film is constantly inviting you to stay on your toes, emotionally invested in what happens next. Another key element that drives audience engagement is the relatability of the characters' struggles. Whether you faced cultural pressure, struggled with family expectations, or wrestled with your own identity, there's something here that resonates. The film taps into universal themes of love, acceptance, and the search for belonging, but does so through a very specific and nuanced lens. This blend of the particular and the universal makes the story feel both personal and widely relevant, encouraging viewers from diverse backgrounds to connect with it on their own terms. What's more, the film's pacing and narrative structure are designed to keep viewers hooked without overwhelming them. The balance of humor and drama means you're constantly emotionally engaged without feeling drained. It's the kind of story that invites repeat viewings because there's so much texture and detail to unpack. From subtle performances to layered dialogue to cultural nuances, that you notice something new each time. This replay value adds an extra layer of engagement, making the film stick in your mind and heart long after the credits roll. The way the film handles key emotional moments also invites discussion. Viewers find themselves talking about the characters' choices, the cultural tensions, and the way the film portrays identity and family. It's a story that doesn't just entertain, but sparks conversations, whether among friends, family, or online communities. That kind of engagement elevates the film from just a viewing experience to a shared cultural moment, where different perspectives and feelings can be explored and understood. In addition, the emotional highs and lows are carefully calibrated to mimic real life's unpredictability. You laugh, you cringe, you sigh, and sometimes you even tear up, all within a single scene or sequence. This emotional authenticity makes the characters' journeys feel genuine and immersive, drawing you fully into their world. The film understands that life isn't just one emotion at a time. It's a complex mix, and it captures that beautifully. Overall, The Wedding Banquet 2025 engages its audience on multiple levels, intellectually, emotionally, and socially, creating a rich experience that's both entertaining and meaningful. It's a film that stays with you, inviting laughter, tears, and thoughtful reflection in equal measure, making you feel seen, understood, and connected in ways that few movies manage to pull off. When you start sizing up The Wedding Banquet 2025 alongside other films in its genre, or even within the director's own body of work, you quickly notice that it's playing both a familiar tune and an intriguing new melody at the same time. It's like meeting an old friend who's grown and changed in surprising ways, but still has that unmistakable spark you love. In a genre crowded with romantic comedies and family dramas, this film manages to carve out its own niche by blending cultural specificity with universal themes, offering something fresh without tossing out the classics. If you think about other films that deal with cross-cultural relationships or family dynamics, like My Big Fat Greek Wedding or Crazy Rich Asians, this one shares that same warm-hearted vibe, but goes deeper in exploring identity and the complexity of balancing tradition with modern life. Where some films in this space might lean heavily into comedy or romantic tropes, The Wedding Banquet 2025 balances those elements with a nuanced look at sexuality, culture, and family pressure, giving it more emotional weight without losing the lightness that keeps you smiling. It's a more layered take on a familiar template, which keeps it from feeling like just another wedding movie. Comparing it to the original The Wedding Banquet from the 90s, which it loosely references or draws inspiration from, this version updates the story for a contemporary audience with sharper social commentary and a more diverse representation of characters and issues. The original was groundbreaking in its time for tackling LGBTQ+ themes within an Asian cultural context, but the 2025 version expands on that foundation, reflecting how conversations around identity and family have evolved. It's like the sequel nobody asked for but needed, building on the legacy with fresh perspectives while honoring the heart of the original. Within the director's filmography, this film stands out as a confident and mature work that shows growth in storytelling and thematic depth. If the director's earlier movies leaned more heavily on humor or straightforward narratives, here you can see a more sophisticated handling of tone and character complexity. The film doesn't just tell a story. It invites viewers into a cultural and emotional dialogue, marking a clear evolution in the director's vision and craft. Fans of the director will recognize signature stylistic touches, but the storytelling feels more refined and layered, demonstrating artistic growth. In terms of genre, The Wedding Banquet 2025 doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it definitely sharpens it. The romantic comedy and family drama elements are there, but they're interwoven with social issues and personal struggles in a way that feels genuine rather than formulaic. The film's ability to blend humor and heart, tradition and modernity, creates a dynamic that sets it apart from more cookie-cutter entries in the genre. It respects the conventions enough to satisfy genre fans, but isn't afraid to challenge or stretch them, which keeps things interesting. What's particularly notable is how the film handles cultural specificity without alienating a wider audience. Some movies get so deep in the details that they risk feeling niche, but The Wedding Banquet 2025 strikes a balance, using its cultural backdrop to enrich the story rather than limit it. This approach makes it accessible to viewers unfamiliar with the specific traditions or social dynamics portrayed, inviting empathy and understanding across cultural lines. It's a fine line to walk, and the film does so with grace and insight when stacked against other LGBTQ+ films, especially those that focus on family acceptance and cultural conflicts. This movie feels like a strong voice in a growing chorus. It shares thematic DNA with films like Call Me by Your Name or Love, Simon, but brings its own unique flavor by embedding the story in an immigrant family setting with a focus on traditional ceremonies and expectations. The blend of humor, drama, and social commentary makes it stand apart from more straightforward coming-of-age or romance stories. Finally, in terms of emotional impact and character complexity, The Wedding Banquet 2025 feels like it sits comfortably alongside the best of its genre peers. It's not afraid to dive into difficult conversations or show characters who are flawed, contradictory, and wonderfully human. This honesty elevates it above many formulaic films that rely on clichés or one-dimensional characters. Here, you get a rich tapestry of relationships and motivations that feel authentic and deeply felt, inviting viewers to invest fully in the story. So while The Wedding Banquet 2025 nods to familiar territory with its wedding setup, family drama, and romantic entanglements, it plays these elements with a fresh hand and a clear voice, making it a standout in a crowded field and a worthy addition to its genre and the director's catalog. The Wedding Banquet 2025 is like a treasure hunt for anyone who loves discovering those sneaky little symbols and metaphors that sneak beneath the surface of a story and make everything richer and more meaningful. This film isn't just about the obvious plot points or the surface-level drama. It's layered with visual cues and recurring motifs that keep nudging you to think deeper about identity, tradition, and the messy, beautiful dance between the two. One of the most striking symbolic elements throughout the film is the wedding itself. On the surface, it's a celebration of love and union, but here it also doubles as a metaphor for the clash and blending of cultures, identities, and expectations. The wedding preparations, the traditional rituals, the elaborate decorations, the carefully choreographed ceremonies, represent the weight of cultural heritage and societal pressure. But the very act of the wedding, which should be about honest commitment, becomes a tangled performance to appease family and tradition. This duality plays out visually and narratively, reminding us that sometimes what looks perfect on the outside hides complexity and compromise underneath. The film loves to play with the idea of masks and appearances, both literally and figuratively. Characters often wear masks, sometimes at social gatherings, sometimes in their interactions, symbolizing the facades people adopt to fit in or protect themselves. This motif extends beyond physical masks to the emotional armor characters put on to hide their true feelings or identities. These moments invite the audience to think about how much of what we see is genuine and how much is a carefully constructed performance shaped by fear, love, or duty. Another recurring visual metaphor is food and shared meals. Food scenes in the film aren't just about nourishment or culture. They symbolize connection, conflict, and negotiation within the family. The act of breaking bread together becomes a moment where tensions simmer beneath polite conversation, where unspoken truths hang in the air, and where characters try to find common ground. The preparation and sharing of traditional dishes serve as a reminder of heritage, but also as a stage for the negotiation of identity. Who belongs, who is accepted, and under what terms. Water imagery also makes subtle appearances, symbolizing change, fluidity, and the passage of time. Whether it's a rain-soaked scene or the reflective surfaces of ponds and rivers, these moments underscore the film's exploration of identity as something that's not fixed but flowing and evolving. Water reminds us that while traditions can be solid and enduring, life itself is in constant motion, and sometimes we have to let go or reshape who we are to survive and thrive. The film's use of space and physical barriers also carries metaphorical weight. Doorways, windows, and walls frequently appear as visual markers of separation and connection, barriers between characters or between personal and public selves. For example, scenes where characters are separated by a door or seen through a window highlight emotional distance or the feeling of being trapped between conflicting worlds. These visual cues subtly enhance the story's themes of division and the longing for understanding and unity. Colors in the film are another fascinating layer of symbolism. Traditional reds and golds in wedding scenes evoke celebration and cultural richness, but also the intensity of expectations and societal pressures. In contrast, cooler tones in private moments hint at vulnerability, uncertainty, or emotional distance. The deliberate use of color palettes helps the audience feel the emotional atmosphere without a word being spoken, enhancing the storytelling through purely visual means. The recurring motif of photography and memories also runs through the film. Old family photos, snapshots during gatherings, and moments captured on camera underscore the theme of legacy. How the past shapes the present, and how characters grapple with inherited identities. These images act as silent witnesses to joy, sorrow, and unspoken histories, inviting viewers to consider how we preserve or rewrite our personal and cultural narratives. Even the film's soundtrack carries metaphorical weight, with musical themes weaving in and out, reflecting the characters' inner emotional landscapes. The ebb and flow of the score mirror the tensions and reconciliations happening on screen, acting almost like an invisible thread binding the film's various symbolic elements together. In a clever twist, the film also plays with the idea of arranged versus chosen futures. The arranged wedding is a surface-level plot device, but also a metaphor for the larger question of how much of our lives are dictated by external expectations versus personal choice. This tension ripples through the story and is embodied in small details. A hesitant glance, a silent pause, a gesture, that keep the audience engaged in unpacking these layers. So, while you're enjoying the laughs and emotional beats, there's a whole undercurrent of symbolism that enriches the experience, making the Wedding Banquet 2025 feel like a story you can return to again and again, discovering new meanings and hidden gems each time. It's like the film is inviting you to join in a subtle dance, where every visual cue and recurring motif deepens your understanding and appreciation of the complex, beautiful world it's portraying. The Wedding Banquet 2025 isn't exactly part of a sprawling franchise or cinematic universe, but it does carry a fascinating historical and cultural lineage that adds layers of meaning to the experience. Think of it less like a sequel or prequel, and more like a vibrant conversation with the original The Wedding Banquet from the 1990s. A film that broke ground by bringing LGBTQ+ themes and cross-cultural family dynamics into the spotlight in a way few films dared at the time. This 2025 version picks up that baton, updating the dialogue between past and present, tradition and progress, in a way that feels both respectful and refreshingly modern. The historical context here is key because the original The Wedding Banquet came at a moment when discussions about identity, immigration, and family acceptance were just beginning to find their way into mainstream cinema. Back then, the film's bold portrayal of a gay Asian American man navigating cultural expectations was pioneering. Fast forward to 2025, and this new film isn't just retelling the story. It's exploring how much has changed and how much remains the same. It digs into the evolving attitudes toward LGBTQ+ issues, the shifting dynamics within immigrant families, and the modern complexities of balancing personal truth with cultural heritage. The film doesn't just reference the past through dialogue or character backstories. It immerses viewers in a world that feels both contemporary and deeply connected to history. It's like walking through a neighborhood where every street corner carries echoes of the struggles and triumphs of those who came before. From traditional wedding customs to the ways families communicate and reconcile differences, the film paints a vivid picture of how history lives on in everyday life. It's this blending of time that gives the film a rich texture, past traditions meeting present realities in a way that feels alive and urgent. Visually and narratively, the film honors the aesthetics and spirit of the original while using new technology and storytelling techniques to enhance immersion. The way the filmmakers recreate traditional ceremonies, family gatherings, and cultural rituals is detailed and respectful, showing a deep understanding of the history behind these practices. But they don't just freeze these moments in time. They animate them with contemporary energy, reminding us that culture is not static. It breathes, evolves, and adapts with each generation. There's also a playful nod to historical shifts in societal norms, reflected in characters who embody different attitudes toward love, identity, and family. Older generations might represent more traditional views, while younger characters push boundaries and redefine what it means to belong. This generational tension adds an interesting layer, showing how history isn't just a backdrop, but an active force shaping the story's emotional stakes. While it's not a historical epic set during a specific event or era, the film's immersion in the cultural history of its characters gives it an authenticity that feels just as important. It's a snapshot of modern life framed by the echoes of the past, a cinematic bridge connecting decades of social change. The film doesn't lecture or over-explain. Instead, it lets history seep naturally into the narrative through characters' conversations, traditions, and internal conflicts. So, in a way, The Wedding Banquet 2025 acts as a cultural time capsule and a living document all at once. It invites viewers to reflect on how stories of identity, love, and family have evolved, and encourages appreciation for the courage it takes to honor tradition while forging new paths. It's a film that acknowledges its roots without being weighed down by them, offering a fresh chapter in an ongoing story that continues to resonate across generations. When it comes to the budget of The Wedding Banquet 2025, it's one of those interesting cases where smart spending really shows. The film didn't have the kind of blockbuster-level budget that lets directors splash around with expensive explosions or CGI extravaganzas, but what it lacked in dollars, it more than made up for in creativity and careful craftsmanship. The production quality punches way above what you'd expect from a mid-range budget, proving that you don't need a Hollywood-sized wallet to make something visually stunning and emotionally compelling. The filmmakers clearly prioritized authenticity. Lavish set pieces were replaced with meticulously chosen locations that felt lived in and genuine. The wardrobe, props, and set design didn't scream high budget, but instead whispered subtle details that brought cultural richness and character depth to every scene. The cinematography and lighting choices also show clever use of resources, making every frame feel intentional and carefully composed. This is the kind of production where the team stretched every dollar with imagination rather than relying on sheer spending power. Box office-wise, the film carved out a respectable niche for itself, especially considering its thematic focus and the more targeted audience it appeals to. It didn't rocket to the top of global charts or break records in blockbuster territories, but it more than held its own in indie circuits, international markets, and among cinephiles who appreciate nuanced storytelling. In fact, its box office numbers were a bit like a slow-cooking recipe: steady, dependable growth fueled by word of mouth, festival buzz, and critical appreciation rather than a single explosive opening weekend. Marketing played an interesting role here. The campaign was more grassroots than splashy, leveraging social media communities, film festivals, and cultural organizations to spread the word. Instead of traditional flashy trailers or star-studded premieres, the film's promotional strategy felt more like a conversation, targeted, thoughtful, and community-driven. This approach aligned perfectly with the film's themes, creating a sense of authenticity and trust with potential viewers that paid off in ticket sales and streaming numbers later on. Audience reception was a big factor in boosting its financial success over time. Viewers connected with the story on a personal level, which sparked discussions and recommendations that kept the momentum going well beyond its theatrical run. The film's relatable characters and heartfelt themes made it a favorite for repeat viewings and shared experiences, both in theaters and on streaming platforms. This organic enthusiasm helped the film cross cultural and generational boundaries, broadening its appeal without needing a blockbuster marketing blitz. Of course, with any film that isn't a massive studio tentpole, there were challenges in reaching wider audiences who might not immediately gravitate toward a culturally specific, emotionally nuanced story. But the positive buzz among niche audiences and critics helped it gain footholds in international markets and among streaming viewers looking for something meaningful and different. This mix of steady box office performance and strong digital presence shows how a well-made film with a modest budget can find its own unique path to financial and cultural success. So, while the Wedding Banquet 2025 might not have filled stadiums with thousands on opening night, it's a great example of a film where careful budgeting, smart marketing, and genuine audience connection combined to create a financial story as layered and rewarding as the film itself. It's a reminder that sometimes quality, heart, and clever strategy make a bigger splash than dollars alone. The Wedding Banquet 2025 is now available for audiences to enjoy across various platforms, offering flexibility in how you choose to experience this heartfelt romantic comedy. For those who prefer the cinematic experience, the film is currently playing in select theaters. You can check showtimes and purchase tickets through platforms like Fandango, Cinemark, and AMC Theaters, which list the film's availability in their theaters. If you prefer to watch from the comfort of your home, the film is available for digital rental and purchase on several major platforms. You can rent or buy The Wedding Banquet on Amazon Video, Apple TV, Fandango at Home, and Microsoft Store. Rental prices typically start at $5.99, with purchase options available for $14.99 or more, depending on the platform and video quality. For those looking for a free streaming option, The Wedding Banquet is available on Hoopla, a digital media service accessible through participating libraries. If you have a library card with a participating library, you can stream the film at no additional cost. To experience the film with the fullest impact, watching in a theater can provide an immersive experience with high-quality visuals and sound. However, if home viewing is more convenient, digital rentals and purchases offer flexibility and comfort. Consider your preferences and choose the viewing option that best suits your needs.